Hello and welcome to module 3.2, the power of storytelling, how to sell your brand without even selling. In this module, you'll discover how storytelling works as a vehicle for your brand message, the psychology of story in sales, how story enhances your brand and creates affinity, some examples of effective brand storytelling, and the one page on your website that's perfect for sharing your brand story. So without further ado, let's dive in. A great story is the hallmark of a great brand. Your story is the foundation of your brand. Without a story, you're just another fill in the blank business. I want you to think about that for a second. Without a story, you're just another whatever business you have, another jewelry business, another cake business, another IT business, another accounting business. But you have to have a story, and that story needs to be communicated in a way that fascinates and attracts your audience. But before we get into that, let's look at the history of storytelling and let's look at why that's important. Storytelling has been around for more than 10,000 years and has been the foundation of communication. Stories have the power to shape the morals, ideas, behaviors, and trends of society. And you only need to look at a popular Disney story to see how powerful storytelling is in terms of creating lasting influence. Telling your story is a great way of getting your message across to your audience in a way that appeals to their emotional side with the least amount of resistance, which is sometimes more effective than taking the direct selling approach. So why is story important? Story demonstrates the transformation your product or service provides. It creates anticipation and fascination around your brand. Stories are shareable. Stories connect people together. That's a major key right there. Stories are shareable. And we're so busy sharing things online that if you've got a really good story, then your brand can get out there to the masses if your story is compelling enough. That's very different to sharing a sales video or a sales letter or something that's promotional. People don't generally share those because there's no entertainment value in it. But with stories, you've got to remember people want to be either inspired, educated, or entertained. They don't want to be sold to. So that's another key reason why story is very important. Which segues into self-defense against salespeople. Right? The average customer is exposed to perhaps 3,000 commercial messages a day from all sources. From the time he gets up in the morning, he is bombarded with sales messages on the radio, television, billboards, and store signs, in newspapers and in magazines, and in telephone calls and mail solicitations. Everywhere he turns are the advertisements shouting, "Buy this." And that's from The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. So I'm sure you can relate to that. We're being sold to everywhere, and customers are getting a lot more savvy, and they are sort of tuning out sales messages. So that's why you've really got to understand how to tell your story and cut through the noise. So let's look at the psychology of storytelling in sales. Now, because stories bypass the analytical part of the brain that looks for objections, things that could go wrong, or reasons not to buy, this allows the storyteller to get their point across with the least amount of resistance. Now, when you tell a story that's relevant to your product or service rather than selling, your job is simply to paint a picture in the mind of your customer about the possibilities available to them. It really depends on the effect you want to have on your customer and what emotions motivate them most. For example, are they motivated by fear or pleasure when it comes to looking for products and services like yours? It really depends. Now, through the eyes of the main character in the story, which is your past client, or someone who has a success story with your business, they get to see and experience the benefits of whichever product or service you have through the eyes of that lead character. And as I mentioned before, that character could be a former customer of yours or someone who inspired the creation of your product or service, for example. Now, what happens in the mind of your audience is like magic. They get that warm, inspired feeling of, oh, I really want what he has or what she has, or I want that feeling right now, for example. When you can inspire people on an emotional level like this, you put your brand in a powerful position by giving it real meaning, value, and context in the lives of your target audience. You can tell your story through any medium, but it's best to use the same media your ideal customers are using right now. It could be video, it could be images on Instagram or your blog. There are so many different ways you can do it, but it's about sharing an experience and making your customers feel like they're part of it even before money exchanges hands. Show and tell more than you sell. We live in an age where we're being bombarded with advertising. It's all around us, from TV, radio, and even our Facebook timelines now. Everywhere you look, there's someone with something to sell, and it's got to the point where we've become desensitized to advertising. That's why a good story beats a sales pitch every single time. When you change the way you think about selling and incorporate storytelling into your communication strategy, you'll have an unfair advantage over your competitors. While your competitors are fighting for attention, you'll be commanding it almost effortlessly when you use story to communicate the value of your product or service. Now let's talk about selling versus entertainment. Now let's be real, people want to be inspired, informed, and entertained. Story is very effective, especially on social media, because nobody wakes up and wants to buy products on social media. That's just the bottom line. A good story in a business conversation can offer a glimpse into the prospect's future, creating positive expectancy, and by taking them on a mental journey through somebody else's experience, as I've already mentioned. And the best stories use descriptive, hypnotic, and colorful language that will help the listener create a vivid mental image of what could happen if they buy into your product or service. So that makes them a lot more open to suggestion. So to reiterate that, very few people enjoy being sold to, but most people enjoy a good story. Every brand has a story, including yours. And it's all about identifying the best parts that connect with your ideal audience and telling your story in a way that engages and fascinates your audience. So what's your story? Your story should highlight the following: how you arrived at the current moment in your business, so that's your brand's history, the lifestyle associated with your brand, what values and principles are most important to you and your customers, who your customers are. And when I say who your customers are, you should publicly praise and support your customers. That's a very good thing to do. You should also promote your staff or your team and share what's going on behind the scenes at your business, because people like to have that they'd like to be a fly on the wall and know what's going on inside of the businesses that they work with, because at the end of the day, people like to work with people or buy from people they know, like, and trust. So getting that process of getting people to like you is to be relatable and share what's going on behind the scenes. So part of your story is explaining or demonstrating your role in your existing customers' lives and how you make a difference, how you're different to your competitors. And a great place to share your story is on your website's about page. Now, statistically, the about page is the second most visited page on any website. The about page is your opportunity to build trust and rapport with your prospective customers. Say what your business does in a simple way without the jargon. Tell your story. The about page of your site is basically like a speed dating session. You'll want to hook them with your story by being relatable and authentic without confusing them with jargon or being pushy with the hard sell. A short video clip that highlights who you are, who you serve, and what your brand mission is will also give you bonus points when it comes to winning over your audience. And this is the page that introduces you to prospective customers and lets them know if you're a good fit for them. And since you'll probably want to be discovered on social media too, your social media platforms are also an excellent place to share your story and build brand affinity. So let's look at some examples of how brands have been able to tell their stories effectively using social media, particularly on one of the most popular social networks at the moment, Instagram. So this is Pandora, they're a jewelry company, and as you can see, they're using pictures to tell stories of how their products actually fit into people's lives. So here are some images from the Instagram of Simple Green Smoothies. They provide smoothie recipes, and you can see from the pictures they're very colorful, very enticing. It makes It makes you just want to actually try one of the smoothies. I don't know about you. The images make everything look really appealing, just from the way the colors are so bright, the happy smiling faces. You can really get a sense of the story just by looking at just 3 images. Here's another one from the Happy Pig in Amsterdam. I've actually been there. It's quite a nice place where they sell pancakes and desserts, waffles, all that kind of sweet stuff. And yeah, it just shows a little bit of their culture. As you can see over here, there is a board where their customers from all around the world, they write a little message on when they visited. So it just tells a story of how it's a family run business, and you can see that from the images. It looks like a fun place to be. Here you've got Nike. They're telling their story. It's all about inspiration in sports. It's all about perseverance and motivation. So remember I said that people want to be inspired, educated, and entertained. Nike is a very inspirational brand. They come across as that on Instagram, and you can see that from the pictures. And here is Gary Vaynerchuk, one of my favorite business minds. He tells his story very, very effectively using Instagram. He shows what his working day is like. For example, he's always in a taxi, taking a taxi to a meeting. He's got inspirational quotes which kind of give advice and guidance to up and coming entrepreneurs. So you can just by looking at his Instagram feed, you can get a sense of who he is and what to expect from him, and you can kind of get that connection with him just by following his story, which is a great thing to do, and you can do it too. So just to review everything we've gone through, instead of being sold to, people want to be inspired, informed, and entertained. Story always provides an opportunity for this to take place. Your about page is your opportunity to build trust and rapport with your prospective customers. Telling your story is a great way of getting your message across to your audience in a way that appeals to their emotional side. When you purposely use story as a communication method, you're able to make your brand more fascinating, relatable, and appealing to your prospective customers. And through story, they can experience the transformation your product or service promises through the eyes of somebody else before money even exchanges hands. So that's quite powerful, especially on a subconscious level. So with that being said, you've got the keys to the kingdom when it comes to building trust using storytelling and getting your customers on your side rather than using the hard sell. So with that being said, you've successfully completed this module, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and bye for now.